He lived in a world that many only dreamed of. The man was young for his success, having built a business empire from scratch, and yet he remained humble in his ways. He had a life filled with luxury cars, a home that seemed to touch the clouds, and a calendar packed with important meetings and events. Yet, despite all the wealth and influence, there was one thing in his life that mattered more than everything else: his mother. She was a woman of grace and warmth, the kind of person whose smile could calm even the most stressful days. She had raised him alone, guiding him through school, teaching him the values of honesty, respect, and hard work, and now she enjoyed the comfort of her son's success, though she never let it change who she was. He had always dreamed of finding a life partner who would understand not only him, but the family that made him who he was. When he met her, he thought he had found that. She was elegant and charming, the kind of person people noticed when she entered a room. Her laughter was light and infectious, and her words always seemed to carry confidence. She seemed perfect, attentive to his needs and respectful in public, always complimenting him and showing admiration for his achievements. Everyone who saw them together could not help but notice the way they appeared so in sync, like two people who belonged together. But the man knew life was more than appearances. He knew love meant understanding, patience, and respect for the people who shaped him. That was why he had been eager to bring his fiancée closer to his mother, to let them see each other and build the kind of relationship that could withstand time and challenges. He imagined his mother enjoying her company, laughing together, sharing stories from different generations and creating memories that would last forever. He pictured weekends filled with tea, gentle conversation, and a sense of harmony in his home. One bright afternoon, he decided it was time. He called his mother and told her that he had invited someone special to the house for the weekend. She was delighted, excited to meet the woman who had captured her son's heart. She prepared her home as she always did, dusting, arranging flowers, and making sure everything was perfect. She wanted to make a good impression, not just as a hostess, but because she cared deeply for the happiness of her son. She looked forward to seeing how the two people she loved most could connect, imagining their laughter filling the house. The fiancée arrived in her usual elegant style. She wore a dress that seemed tailored for the occasion, with colors that highlighted her features and a smile that made the room seem lighter. She greeted the mother politely, shaking her hand and offering compliments on the home. At first, the conversation was pleasant, filled with small talk and gentle laughter. The man watched from the side, feeling a sense of pride. He thought everything was going as he had hoped. But there were small signs, tiny moments he almost missed. A quick eye roll, a faint sigh when the mother spoke about her old recipes, a subtle tone of impatience in her laughter. He dismissed them at first, thinking perhaps she was just nervous or adjusting to the new environment. As the afternoon continued, the group sat down for tea. The mother spoke about her life, her work raising her son, and the values she had tried to instill in him. She talked about how proud she was of his accomplishments, and how she always hoped he would find someone who respected family and understood the importance of love and care. The fiancée nodded along, smiling, but there was a faint sharpness in her words, almost like she was questioning the mother's opinions without openly saying it. She made small comments about the mother's old-fashioned ways, laughing at certain habits and offering modern alternatives that felt more like criticism than advice. The man noticed a small tightening of his mother's face, a subtle shift in her posture, as if she was bracing herself against words she did not fully welcome. He tried to stay focused on keeping the atmosphere light, changing the topic, and steering the conversation to safer ground. They spoke about the upcoming week, about work, and about some charity events he was planning to attend. The fiancée responded with enthusiasm and charm, praising his ideas and offering suggestions that seemed thoughtful on the surface. Yet every so often her tone carried a hint of condescension when directed at his mother, an undertone that did not match the smiles on her face. The man started to feel a knot in his stomach, a feeling that something was not as it seemed. Later, he had to step out for a quick call related to his business. It was only meant to last a few minutes, and he left the room, expecting the same warmth and civility to continue in his absence. What happened next was something he could not have anticipated. From the corner of the hallway, he overheard fragments of the conversation, enough to make his heart sink. The fiancée's voice was sharp, clipped, and dismissive. She questioned his mother's choices, mocked her habits, and spoke as if she was correcting a child rather than engaging with a woman who had spent a lifetime raising someone as remarkable as him. The mother responded softly, trying to maintain dignity and composure, but it was clear she was hurt. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her teacup, and her voice, usually calm and strong, carried the faintest trace of sadness. He froze, unable to move, listening to words that cut deeper than anything he could have imagined. The charm, the laughter, the apparent respect, it had all been a facade. The woman he thought he knew, the one he had planned to spend his life with, was showing a side of herself he had never seen before, a side that was cruel and dismissive toward the person who meant more to him than anyone else in the world. He felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and hurt. How could someone he trusted so deeply treat his mother this way? How could he have been so blind? As he stepped closer, the fiancée's words continued, each one like a small dagger to his chest. She criticized the mother for minor things, made comments about her age and habits, and even suggested that she needed to change to fit better into their modern world. The mother tried to smile, tried to deflect, tried to laugh along, but it was clear that she was struggling to maintain her composure. The man's mind raced. He thought of all the times his mother had stood by him, the sacrifices she had made, the values she had instilled in him, and now he watched someone he trusted tear her down in her own home. He realized then that this was a test, not of wealth or love or charm, but of character. The fiancée's true nature was laid bare in these moments of privacy, away from public appearances and social gatherings. Her respect for him had been conditional, limited to what she could gain from the relationship. Her regard for the people who shaped his life, for the family he cherished, was non-existent. And he knew he could not ignore it. He stepped into the room, calm but firm. His presence made the fiancée pause, and the room felt heavy with tension. She tried to smile, tried to regain the facade she had carefully maintained, but he saw right through it. The mother looked at him with relief, a quiet gratitude in her eyes, as if silently saying, "Thank you for seeing this." The man's heart ached for her, and yet he felt a surge of determination. He knew this was the moment where decisions would have to be made, where boundaries would need to be set, and where the kind of love and respect he truly valued would have to be defended. In that moment, he realized that life was not about appearances or luxury or public approval. It was about integrity, about honoring the people who had shaped you, about standing up for what is right even when it is uncomfortable. He made a silent vow to protect his mother, to ensure that no one would ever belittle her in his presence again, and to confront the reality of the woman he had believed to be his partner. He understood that love without respect for family and values was fragile, and that some truths, though painful, could not be ignored. The afternoon ended, but the memory of the fiancée's words lingered. The man could not shake the feeling of betrayal, nor could he forget the way his mother had tried so hard to stay composed despite the hurt. He knew that decisions would have to be made, that difficult conversations were ahead, and that his life might change in ways he had never imagined. But he also knew one thing clearly: he would never compromise on respect, integrity, or the bond he shared with his mother. That bond, more than anything else, would guide him through the storm that was about to come. After the incident in the living room, the atmosphere in the house changed. The man could not shake the words he had overheard, and the sharpness in his fiancée's voice kept echoing in his mind. He decided to remain calm in the moment, not wanting to create a scene in front of his mother. She had already endured enough hurt, and he wanted to protect her from more distress. He guided the conversation toward neutral topics, asking about upcoming events and work matters, but the tension was noticeable. The fiancée seemed slightly unsettled, perhaps realizing that her attitude had been caught, and the mother remained polite but distant, her smile no longer as easy or carefree. Later that evening, he invited his mother for a quiet walk in the garden. The garden was his mother's favorite place, filled with fragrant flowers and a small fountain where she liked to sit. He needed to hear her thoughts, to understand how deeply she had been affected, and to reassure her that he valued her feelings above all else. They walked slowly along the stone pathway, the evening light casting long shadows on the grass. He listened. And as she spoke about her feelings, about the subtle ways she had felt dismissed and the sadness that had crept into her heart, she explained that she had tried not to let it show during the tea, not wanting to upset him or ruin the visit, but the sting of those words had left her shaken. He held her hand gently, feeling the weight of responsibility and love. He told her that she had nothing to feel ashamed of, that she had done everything right and that her place in his life was secure and cherished. The mother's eyes glistened with tears, a mixture of relief and lingering pain. She was proud of the man he had become, but she also worried that this confrontation could bring tension into his life, something he had worked so hard to avoid. He reassured her that he would handle it, that no one would disrespect her in his home again, and that he valued her opinion above anyone else's. This moment, quiet and tender, strengthened their bond even more. That night, the man stayed awake thinking about the events of the day. He reflected on the woman he had planned to spend his life with, trying to reconcile the charming persona he had seen for months with the coldness he had witnessed. He remembered the small gestures of affection, the compliments, the thoughtful actions she had displayed, and tried to determine whether any of it had been genuine. The more he thought, the more he realized that kindness and charm could be superficial if they were not accompanied by respect and empathy. Respect for family, he realized, was a fundamental measure of character, one that could not be faked when it mattered most. The next day, he had to attend several business meetings, but his mind was elsewhere. Every conversation, every interaction reminded him of the incident, and he felt a growing need to address it. Yet he also knew he needed a plan, a careful approach, because confrontation without clarity could escalate unnecessarily. He wanted to see if this was an isolated moment of poor judgment or a deeper pattern of behavior. More than anything, he wanted to protect his mother and ensure that the values she had instilled in him were never compromised by someone close to him. In the afternoon, he invited the fiancée for a walk in the city. They moved through quiet streets, away from the eyes of others, where he could speak openly. He began by asking her about her feelings toward his mother, trying to understand her perspective. The fiancée, caught off guard, attempted to explain herself. She said she had only been joking, that she did not mean to hurt anyone, and that she thought she was helping by offering advice. Her tone was defensive but calm, and she seemed frustrated that her actions had been misunderstood. He listened patiently, but noticed that her words lacked true acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. She did not apologize in a sincere way, nor did she show understanding of how her attitude had affected the mother. He explained calmly but firmly that respect could not be optional, that his mother's feelings were not something to dismiss or belittle, and that behavior like hers was not acceptable in his home. He spoke about the foundation of their relationship, the trust and honesty that were essential, and how such actions could not be overlooked if they were to have a future together. The conversation grew tense as the fiancée attempted to justify her behavior further, suggesting that older generations often had outdated ways and needed guidance. He remained steady, telling her that guidance should come from care and understanding, not ridicule or disrespect. The more they spoke, the more he realized that the issues were not just about a single afternoon, but about fundamental differences in values and attitudes. He recognized that charm and outward appearances were not enough to sustain a relationship built on mutual respect and shared principles. After the walk, he returned home, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He spent time with his mother again, ensuring she felt supported and safe. They talked about lighter things, about flowers in the garden, about his work and her hobbies, trying to restore a sense of peace in the house. He encouraged her to speak freely, to share any lingering concerns, and reassured her that he would not allow anyone to diminish her worth or make her feel unwelcome. This moment of intimacy and care strengthened their connection, reminding him why family was always his priority. Over the next few days, he observed the fiancée carefully. He noticed subtle behaviors that confirmed his fears: impatience, dismissive remarks, and a lack of genuine interest in connecting with his mother. While she smiled and acted graciously when others were present, the private moments revealed a different reality. He began to understand that he had been charmed by surface-level qualities, while the deeper issues had been there all along. He reflected on the importance of paying attention to these signs, realizing that love alone could not bridge the gap created by disrespect and incompatibility. One evening, he decided to invite a few close friends to the house, people who knew both him and his mother well. He observed their interactions with the fiancée, noting how she treated his mother in front of others. While her behavior was slightly more restrained in a group, the subtle condescension was still there, noticeable to those who paid attention. His friends exchanged knowing glances, offering silent support and understanding. They later spoke privately with him, confirming that what he had witnessed was not an isolated incident but a consistent pattern, a red flag that could not be ignored. During this time, the man continued to balance his work, ensuring that his responsibilities did not suffer, yet he could not fully focus on business, because his mind was preoccupied with the situation at home. He found himself thinking about the future, about what kind of life he wanted to build, and about the values that mattered most. The incident with his fiancée had forced him to confront difficult truths, and he realized that decisions based on appearances or charm could lead to regret. He needed a partner who aligned with his values, someone who could respect family, honor relationships, and approach life with empathy. Meanwhile, his mother began to regain her composure, supported by the man's calm and steady presence. She continued her daily routines, tending to her home, preparing meals, and enjoying the small pleasures of life. But she remained cautious around the fiancé. She observed interactions carefully, responding politely but reserving her deeper trust for the son who had always protected her. Their bond became even stronger, built on shared understanding and mutual respect. The man found comfort in knowing that, regardless of the challenges ahead, his mother felt secure and valued in her own home. One afternoon, while reviewing some documents in his study, he received a call from the fiancée. She wanted to talk, to explain herself again, and to insist that she could change her behavior. He listened, aware of the attempts to smooth over the situation, but remained clear in his own mind. Respect could not be fabricated, and genuine change required acknowledgement, empathy, and consistent effort. He spoke calmly, telling her that words were not enough and that actions would reveal true character. He emphasized that he valued family above all else, and that anyone who entered their lives needed to honor that principle. As the days passed, the tension remained, but the man maintained a sense of balance and dignity. He continued to support his mother, engage with friends, and manage his responsibilities, while carefully considering the future of his relationship. He knew that a critical decision was coming, one that would determine whether his life would continue on a harmonious path or be disrupted by conflict and discord. The lessons of the past week had been difficult, but they had also been necessary, revealing truths that could not be ignored. By the end of the week, he felt a growing clarity. The fiancé's behavior had confirmed his worst fears, and he realized that charm and outward affection could never replace genuine respect and empathy. He understood that moving forward required courage, honesty, and the willingness to make difficult choices. The bond with his mother, strengthened through trust and shared experiences, would guide him as he navigated the next steps. The man knew that, no matter what, he would act with integrity, ensuring that love, respect, and family remained at the heart of his life. The following weekend, the air in the house felt heavier than usual. The man had decided that it was time to confront everything directly. The uncertainty, the tension, and the growing distance between him and his fiancée had reached a point where silence was no longer helping anyone. His mother, though gentle in her advice, had encouraged him to do what was right for his peace of mind. She trusted that her son would act with wisdom and grace just as he always had. He spent that morning sitting by the large window in his living room, looking out at the quiet garden. The flowers swayed in the soft breeze, and he thought about how his life had changed over the years. From the days when he and his mother lived in a small apartment to now owning multiple homes around the world, success had come through hard work and perseverance. But as he sat there, he realized that wealth meant nothing if the people close to him did not share the same respect and kindness that his mother had taught him. When the fiancée arrived that afternoon, she seemed cheerful, almost pretending that the awkward moments of the past week had never happened. She greeted his mother politely, smiled, and tried to act warm, but her words still carried the same shallow tone that made the man uneasy. He watched her carefully, noticing every glance, every shift in her expression. It was as if she was performing a role, trying to appear perfect rather than being genuine. After lunch, he asked her to join him for a private talk in his study. The room was quiet, filled with books and soft light from the window. He took a deep breath before speaking, wanting to choose his words carefully. He began by telling her that he wanted to have an honest conversation, one without pretense or excuses. She nodded slowly, though her eyes betrayed a hint of nervousness. He spoke calmly but firmly. He reminded her of the day in the living room, the conversation she had with his mother when she thought he wasn't listening. He explained how much those words had hurt, not only his mother, but him as well. He talked about the importance of respect, especially toward the people who had helped shape his life. He made it clear that his mother's dignity was not something to be compromised, and that love could not exist in a space where empathy was missing. The fiancé's face changed as he spoke. At first she looked shocked, then defensive. She denied meaning any harm, insisting that her words were misunderstood. She said she only wanted to help his mother adapt to modern ways and that she didn't realize her tone came across as disrespectful. But the man had already heard enough. He told her that true kindness didn't need translation. It was felt naturally. And when someone truly cared, their words never carried arrogance or superiority. The conversation stretched on. She grew emotional, pleading for another chance, saying she could do better, that she would change. He listened patiently, but deep down he knew change could only happen when someone recognized the need for it, not when they were afraid of losing something. He told her gently that love built on image or convenience could never last. He needed a partner who understood not just his world but also his values. He needed someone who respected his family as much as he did. Tears filled her eyes and she began to speak about her own insecurities, about feeling judged or not good enough in the presence of his mother. She admitted that she sometimes felt intimidated, fearing she would never live up to his expectations. For the first time, her tone softened into honesty, and he saw a glimpse of the vulnerability beneath her pride. He acknowledged her feelings but reminded her that insecurity could not justify unkindness. He encouraged her to reflect, to grow, and to learn what genuine respect meant, not just for his mother but for herself and others. As the conversation ended, a long silence filled the room. Both of them knew that something had shifted. The relationship, once full of promise and admiration, now stood on fragile ground. The man walked her to the door, his heart heavy but clear. He wished her well, telling her that he hoped she would find happiness, but he also made it clear that he needed time apart to think. She nodded quietly, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and disbelief, and then she left the house. When he returned to the living room, his mother was sitting quietly, knitting near the window. She looked up at him with kind eyes, not asking what had been said, but understanding everything through his expression. He sat beside her, resting his head lightly against the back of the chair. The silence between them was peaceful, the kind that comes when words are not needed. After a few minutes, she placed her hand over his and said softly, "You did what you had to do." He nodded, feeling both relief and sadness. The next few days were quiet. The man threw himself into his work, attending meetings and focusing on his projects. But even in the middle of busy schedules, his mind would wander back to what had happened. He didn't regret speaking his truth, but he couldn't help feeling the sting of disappointment. He had genuinely believed that his fiancée was the person he would share his life with. Letting go of that dream wasn't easy. Still, he knew he had done the right thing. Protecting his mother's peace and maintaining his values mattered far more than pretending everything was fine for the sake of appearances. A few days later, he received a message from his fiancée. It was long and emotional. She wrote that she had thought deeply about what he said, that she understood now how her behavior had been wrong, and that she had been too focused on herself to see how her words affected others. She apologized sincerely to both him and his mother, and expressed her hope that they could find forgiveness in their hearts. The message sounded genuine, and he felt a sense of calm reading it. He showed the message to his mother, who smiled gently and said, "Sometimes people need to lose something important to see the truth." He didn't respond right away. He needed time to see whether her change was real, or just another attempt to make things right quickly. He believed in forgiveness, but also in learning from mistakes. Over the next week, she reached out again, asking to visit his mother to apologize in person. His mother agreed, gracious as always, believing that closure was better than silence. The meeting took place on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The fiancée arrived looking modest and nervous, a noticeable change from her usual confident self. She greeted the mother politely and sat down, her hands trembling slightly. For a moment the room was silent, the air filled with tension. Then she spoke, this time not with excuses but with genuine humility. She admitted that she had been wrong, that her pride had blinded her, and that she had let her own insecurities make her act in ways that were unkind. The mother listened quietly, her expression soft but unreadable. When the fiancé finished speaking, the mother smiled and said, "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we grow from them." Her words were kind but firm. She forgave her, not because she had to, but because she believed in giving people the chance to do better. The fiancé's eyes filled with tears and she thanked her repeatedly. The man watched silently, feeling a sense of respect for his mother's grace. Her forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was strength. It reminded him that true dignity came from kindness, not pride. After the visit, the fiancée left quietly. She didn't ask for the relationship to continue. She only expressed gratitude for the chance to make things right. The man walked her to her car and they spoke briefly. She said she hoped he would find happiness whether or not it was with her. He thanked her for the honesty and wished her well. As she drove away, he felt a sense of peace. There was no anger left, no bitterness, only understanding. That evening, he and his mother shared dinner together. They talked about simple things: the garden, his upcoming work trip, and a charity event they were planning. Laughter returned to the house, soft and genuine. For the first time in weeks, the man felt the quiet comfort of home again. He looked at his mother, feeling deep gratitude for her presence and the lessons she continued to teach him even now. He realized that love was not about grand gestures or perfect appearances. It was about the small things: the way someone spoke to others, the kindness in their actions, the humility in their heart. It was about how people treated those who could give them nothing in return. That, he thought, was the true measure of character. As the night settled, he stepped out into the garden once more. The moonlight shimmered over the flowers and the sound of the fountain filled the air. He breathed deeply, feeling lighter than before. Though the path ahead was uncertain, he knew he was moving in the right direction. He had chosen respect over pretense, truth over comfort, and love grounded in values over illusion. In that quiet moment, surrounded by peace, he made a silent promise to never compromise the principles his mother had taught him, no matter how tempting the world around him became, for he now understood that real love could only exist where there was respect, compassion, and honesty. After that Sunday, life slowly returned to normal. The house, once filled with tension, now carried a sense of peace. The man focused on his work again, attending meetings, planning new projects, and reconnecting with old friends. Yet something inside him had changed. He was no longer the same man who once measured happiness by success or appearance. The past weeks had reminded him what truly mattered: respect, honesty, and family. His mother noticed the difference in him. She saw how he carried himself with calm assurance, how his words had become softer yet stronger. Every morning they shared breakfast together, talking about simple things like the weather, the news, or the flowers she was growing. These little moments, once easy to overlook, became precious to him. They reminded him of his roots, of how far they had come, and of the unbreakable bond between them. Though the fiancée had apologized and stepped back, her memory still lingered in his mind. Not in a bitter way, but as a lesson. Sometimes people came into one's life not to stay forever, but to teach something important. In his case, she had reminded him that not everyone who seemed kind truly understood kindness. He thought often about how easy it was to be blinded by charm and appearances, and how rare it was to find someone genuine. One afternoon, while reviewing some reports, he received a message from a mutual friend who mentioned that the fiancée had moved to another city. She had started volunteering at a local community center, helping elderly people and learning about empathy in a way she had never done before. The news surprised him but also gave him comfort. Maybe she really had learned from what happened. He didn't feel anger anymore, Mo. He hoped that she would grow into a better person. It reminded him that forgiveness wasn't just about freeing someone else. It was also about freeing oneself. In the weeks that followed, he poured his heart into his company's charitable foundation. His mother had always encouraged him to use his wealth for good, to create change that reached beyond himself. He started a new initiative focused on supporting senior citizens who lived alone or lacked family care. The project touched him deeply because it reminded him of the love and respect his mother had always shown him. Whenever he visited one of the centers, he saw faces full of wisdom and stories, people who had lived through challenges yet still smiled with gratitude. Their eyes often reminded him of his mother's, gentle but full of strength. One day he invited his mother to join him at one of these centers. She was delighted, dressing in her favorite shawl and smiling with the kind of joy that could light up a room. When they arrived, the elderly residents welcomed them warmly. They shared laughter, tea, and stories from the past. The mother spoke kindly with everyone, her nurturing nature drawing people in. The man watched proudly, realizing that everything he had achieved, every ounce of compassion he possessed had come from her example. That evening, as they drove back home, his mother turned to him and said, "You've built something wonderful, but what makes me proud is that you still have your heart where it belongs." Her words filled him with quiet happiness. He realized that while wealth could buy comfort, it could never buy peace or respect. Those things had to be earned through actions, through the way one treated others. A few days later, he attended a charity gala. It was a grand event filled with business leaders, politicians, and artists. Cameras flashed as guests arrived, dressed in their finest clothes. But while many saw it as a night for show and reputation, he saw it as an opportunity to raise awareness for causes that truly mattered. As he mingled with people, he felt at ease but grounded. He no longer sought admiration. He sought purpose. During the event, he met a woman who was working with another foundation focused on healthcare for the elderly. She was kind, humble, and passionate about her work. They spoke for a long time about the challenges older people faced, the importance of compassion in society, and how small acts of care could change lives. She reminded him of something he had almost forgotten, that true beauty came from within, from kindness and authenticity. Her presence felt refreshing, free of pretense or performance. She didn't seem impressed by his wealth, only by his sincerity toward helping others. As the evening went on, he found himself smiling more than he had in a long time. They exchanged ideas, shared laughs, and talked about life beyond success and material things. It wasn't love at first sight, but there was a gentle connection, the kind that starts with mutual respect rather than desire. It was the kind of interaction that left him thoughtful and at peace. When he returned home that night, his mother noticed the lightness in his expression and smiled knowingly. "Sometimes," she said softly, "life brings the right people at the right time, when your heart is ready to see them." Over the next few weeks, he continued his work and his friendship with the woman grew naturally. They met often, sometimes at charity meetings, sometimes for coffee, always sharing meaningful conversations. Unlike before, there were no grand promises or exaggerated displays of affection. Instead, there was understanding. She respected his bond with his mother and often included her in conversations. The mother, too, took a liking to her, sensing her sincerity and gentle spirit. For the first time, he felt the comfort of having someone who saw not just the success but the human being behind it. Yet, even as new beginnings formed, the man often reflected on how easily he could have missed this clarity if he had ignored the lessons of the past. Life, he realized, had a way of testing people, sometimes through heartbreak, sometimes through disappointment. What mattered was not the fall, but how one rose afterward. He had chosen growth, compassion, and forgiveness, and in return, he had found peace. One afternoon, he sat with his mother in the garden watching the sunset. She spoke about her younger days, about how love wasn't about finding perfection, but about finding someone who understood the imperfections and cared anyway. He listened, smiling softly, realizing that every word she said carried wisdom shaped by years of experience. He asked her if she had ever doubted him during the difficult days. She looked at him and said, "Never. Because I knew you would always remember who you are no matter what life gave you." Those words stayed with him long after that evening. He carried them with him in every decision he made. Whenever he faced a challenge or met someone new, he thought about the lessons of respect, humility, and love his mother had instilled in him. They became his compass, guiding him through the noise of the world. Months passed, and his foundation grew beyond expectations. He received recognition for his work, but more importantly, he saw real change happening. Communities coming together, elderly people smiling again, and young volunteers learning the value of compassion. His mother attended many of these events with him, always standing quietly in the background, proud and content. Every time he saw her there, it reminded him why he had started in the first place. One day, during an interview with a journalist, he was asked about the secret to his success. He paused for a moment before answering. "My mother," he said simply. She taught me that kindness is the greatest form of strength. Everything I've achieved is because of her guidance." The words came from his heart, and when the interview was published, people admired not just his business achievements but his humility and devotion to family. Back home that evening, his mother teased him gently about the article, saying she didn't expect to be in the news. He laughed, replying that she deserved every bit of recognition. They shared dinner together, laughing and talking like they always did. The warmth in that small dining room meant more to him than any award ever could. As the night grew quiet, he thought again about the journey that had brought him here, the moments of joy, the heartbreak, the lessons learned. He realized that sometimes painful experiences were necessary to reveal what truly mattered. The incident with his fiancée had once felt like a betrayal, but now he saw it as a turning point, one that led him toward growth and understanding. His mother often said that people show their true selves not when life is easy, but when it challenges them. He had seen both sides, the cruelty of pride and the grace of forgiveness. And in that contrast, he found his strength. He had learned to look beyond words, to see character in action, and to value authenticity over appearances. That night, as he stood by his window, looking out over the city lights, he felt grateful. Grateful for his mother's love, for the lessons life had given him, and for the quiet peace that came from choosing the right path. He knew that whatever the future held, he was ready for it, not because he was powerful, but because he was grounded. And as the wind brushed against the glass and the city slept beneath him, he whispered softly to himself, "Respect is the foundation of love." It was a simple truth, one that had cost him much to learn, but now it guided every step he took forward. Time moved gently, like a soft breeze passing through the seasons. The man's life had found a peaceful rhythm. His work flourished, his foundation kept expanding, and his home was filled with warmth and quiet laughter again. Every morning began with tea in the garden, where his mother sat among the flowers she loved to care for. Her calm presence reminded him that true happiness didn't come from wealth or success, but from simple, sincere connections. One morning, while he was reading the newspaper, his mother brought up something unexpected. She asked if he had thought about moving forward in life, about companionship. Her tone was gentle, not pushy. She only wanted to see him happy, not alone. He smiled and told her that he was content, but deep down he knew she was right. Humans weren't meant to walk through life alone. They needed someone who understood their heart, not their status. He thought about the woman he had met at the charity gala months ago. They had remained friends, often crossing paths through their work. Each meeting had been effortless, marked by natural conversation and quiet understanding. She never treated him like a billionaire, never seemed impressed by luxury. She valued moments, not things, and that was something rare. A few weeks later, their foundations collaborated on a new project, creating community centers where older citizens could socialize and share skills with the younger generation. It was a beautiful idea that reflected both of their beliefs, that society grew stronger when generations supported one another. They met often to plan the details, and with every meeting, he felt a calm warmth he hadn't felt in years. One evening, after a long discussion about the project, they went for a walk near the waterfront. The city lights reflected on the water, shimmering softly. He found himself opening up about his past, something he rarely did. He told her about his late father, about how his mother had raised him with strength and love. He even shared the painful story of his broken engagement, the moment that had changed him forever. She listened quietly, not interrupting, not judging, just understanding. When he finished, she said softly, "Sometimes we meet the wrong people first so that we learn to see the right ones clearly." Her words stayed with him. They were simple, but they carried truth. He realized how far he had come from the person he used to be, the one who thought love was about appearances and perfection. Now he understood it was about kindness, patience, and respect. Their friendship continued to deepen. They didn't rush things. They allowed time to do its work. His mother saw the growing bond between them and often smiled knowingly whenever her son mentioned her. She liked the woman's humility, her compassion, and her sincere care for others. There was no pretense, no performance, just genuine warmth. One afternoon, while they were visiting one of the new centers, an elderly man approached them. He had tears in his eyes as he thanked them for their efforts. saying that the center had given him a reason to smile again after losing his wife. The woman reached out and held his hand gently, saying, "That's what we're here for, to remind people that they're not alone." The billionaire stood beside her, quietly moved. He realized that in that moment he wasn't just building a project. He was witnessing what compassion looked like in its purest form. Later that evening, he returned home, thoughtful and full of gratitude. His mother noticed the look on his face and asked if something was on his mind. He told her about the day, about how he was beginning to see what real partnership meant. His mother smiled softly and said, "The heart always knows when it's safe." That simple sentence stayed in his heart. Months went by, and their friendship naturally grew into something deeper. There were no grand confessions or dramatic gestures, just quiet consistency, shared values, and mutual respect. He often found himself looking forward to their conversations, their laughter, and the calm energy she brought into his life. When she spoke about her dreams and the people she wanted to help, he felt inspired, not pressured. He admired her independence and her humility. One evening, he invited her and his mother for dinner at home. It was a small, warm evening, filled with laughter and stories. His mother and the woman got along effortlessly, sharing jokes and even recipes. The billionaire sat across from them, watching with quiet joy. The two women he respected most were sitting together, and it filled him with a kind of peace he hadn't known in years. After they left the table, his mother whispered to him, "If your heart feels at home, that's the only sign you need." That night, after he walked the woman to her car, he found himself hesitating before saying goodbye. The air was cool and the garden lights glowed softly. She turned to him with her usual gentle smile and said, "You look thoughtful." He smiled back and said, "I'm just realizing how lucky I am." She looked surprised for a moment, then smiled quietly. There was no need for more words. The moment spoke for itself. Over the next few months, they continued their work together, but their bond had changed. It had grown into quiet love. It wasn't about excitement or luxury. It was about peace and understanding. He finally felt like he was becoming the kind of man his mother had raised him to be. Kind, grounded, and true to his values. One sunny afternoon, during an event at one of the centers, the elderly people they had helped surprised them with a small celebration. They sang, laughed, and thanked the two for giving them hope. The woman stood beside him, smiling as she looked around at the joy in the room. The billionaire looked at her and realized that this was what happiness looked like. Not something to chase, but something to build slowly with care. When they returned home that evening, his mother was sitting by the fireplace, knitting a scarf. She looked up at them, her eyes twinkling. "How was the event?" she asked. He told her everything, his voice full of warmth. The woman laughed, adding little details, and his mother joined in the laughter. It felt like a family, natural and full of love. After the woman left that night, his mother turned to him and said, "You've found someone who respects you because you respect others. Never forget that's what keeps love strong." He nodded, her words sinking deep into his heart. He knew she was right. A few months later, the project they had worked on was finally complete. The grand opening ceremony brought together people from all walks of life, business leaders, volunteers, and families. The billionaire stood on stage, but instead of giving a speech about success, he talked about gratitude. He spoke about his mother's influence, about the lessons he learned from his past, and about how compassion had changed his life. The audience listened quietly, moved by his sincerity. When he mentioned the woman's name and thanked her for inspiring him to believe in kindness again, she looked down, smiling modestly. His mother sat in the front row, tears shining in her eyes. After the ceremony, the crowd applauded, and the three of them shared a quiet moment together. His mother took his hand and whispered, "Your father would be proud." That simple sentence filled his heart with emotion. He realized that everything he had gone through, the heartbreak, the lessons, the rebuilding, had led him to this moment of peace. That evening, as they sat in the garden watching the sunset, his mother said softly, "You've done well, my son. You've found balance, and you've remembered who you are." He looked at her with love and said, "I only remembered because you never let me forget." The woman joined them soon after, bringing tea and laughter to the table. They talked until the stars came out, the air filled with the sound of gentle conversation and warmth. There was no rush for what came next. Life was unfolding naturally, beautifully, and that was enough. As the night deepened, the billionaire sat quietly, watching the two women who had brought meaning back into his life. He realized that the greatest wealth he could ever possess wasn't his empire or his success. It was the love and peace he had built around him. Respect, he thought, truly was the foundation of everything good. The story of his life had changed. What once began with pride and heartbreak had turned into a journey of forgiveness, understanding, and second chances. He knew now that people could fall and still rise stronger, that even painful moments could lead to something beautiful if met with grace. When he finally went to bed that night, he looked out the window one last time. The city lights shimmered below just as they always had, but to him they looked softer now, like a quiet reminder that life always gives back what you put into it. And for the first time in years, he closed his eyes with a heart completely at peace.